Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Team Lead Talks podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Becker, and on today's episode, all the way from Beverly Hills, California, we have the CEO and founder of the Distinct Concierge Real Estate team in Beverly Hills, California. Welcome, Rod.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, man. I'm really excited to talk to you. I was looking over your website. You guys do some pretty cool stuff. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but I always like to start these with, can you just tell us a little bit about your background? I know you have a pretty big sports background, but how you started, how you got into real estate, and a little bit about your team.
Yeah, so my background, I'm originally from Houston, Texas, born and raised. I've been in real estate 20 years, based in Beverly Hills, California, as you shared, but I've been doing business, started out in Houston, Texas as a licensed agent in 2007. My career in real estate originated just from being an investor. Started out buying properties, my wife and I, single family residence. And then from there, kind of evolved into the actual agent representation space because, we were doing some remodels and fix and flips. And I was like, I could actually, represent ourselves on the other side, retain that money, reinvest that money back into the properties. And so that's what really kicked it off and started for us. And then I, evolved into actually being a licensed agent where I started doing a lot of REO distress sale properties, short sales, learning the business while the market was down, which was great for me because I had an opportunity to work with investors, had an opportunity to really understand the transactional side, both when representing the client, but also understanding the actual contracts and the deals and understanding how to structure deals. That's where I really got my knowledge and, my base, the foundation from. And during that period, I slowly basically evolved into the higher price points. Working with athletes became a natural, evolution for me, or I just naturally evolved in it because of my past background in sports. But I did get my start just basically being an investor. And from there, as I grew and learned the business, I started focusing on how can I be more than just a transactional agent and really focusing on impact over transactions. And the impact I wanted to have was in the sports and entertainment space and for my culture. Representation does matter. And so for me, I saw that was an opportunity for me to build a brand and a business in that specific niche market. And that's what I focused all my attention and energy on.
Very cool. And just real quick, I saw that you have a former Super Bowl two-time champion on the team.
Yeah,
Used
absolutely.
to be on the Redskins back in the day. Now the Commanders. I'm
Yeah.
in Alexandria, so I'm a
Okay.
diehard Redskin fan. So that's
Yeah.
that's very cool.
Yeah, that's my guy, Byron Chamberlain. He actually won his two Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos with John Elway,
Yeah,
Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, all of those guys. And then he played for the Vikings, and then he ended up at the Redskins on the backside of his career. But yeah, he's a
yeah,
great guy, good friend of mine, just a super great all around person. He has a lot of great relationships. He's a good golf. Now he's a great golfer. He plays a lot of golf. He actually really has opened a lot of doors in the NFL side for me with introductions and relationships. So he's the director of our private client services, and he tees up opportunities in the sports and entertainment space with, not just athletes, but oftentimes very, very influential people, high net worth clients that we desire to work with. And relationships matter in this business. So having someone like him as part of the team is really strategic and I think critical for our success.
yeah, 100%. I want to talk about your team and how those dynamics work. But first, you had mentioned when you got into real estate, you started doing your own kind of, off-market deals, flips, stuff like that. How did you source those deals? How did you find the properties?
Yeah, that's a good question. Back in the day, when I started '05 actually '06, the internet was still new. There was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was no LinkedIn, there was no Zillow, Truly, or none of these tech companies existed, right? That disrupted our industry. So for me, we actually worked off lists, county lists. So example, in the city of Houston at the time, they would release this actual county list that would show properties that were delinquent in taxes and then properties that were actually facing foreclosure, and then who the actual lenders were. I chose to focus on properties that that had loans with Bank of America, and then from there, I also looked at Chase and Wells Fargo. So I would source those lists to look for distressed assets, and then what we would do is mail them letters. And then we would basically do mailers and we would do drops, and then we would do what's called bandit signs. We would place these signs that basically said, sell your home for cash, blah, 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 blah. I think we've all seen those signs. And we would place them in basically high foreclosure zip codes. And we would get phone calls. Then I also created websites. Like I had a top traffic site called KatieForeclosuresForSale.com, because at the time we lived in Katy and there was a specific zip code 77449 where there was a high rate of foreclosures taking place around that 2008 period of time. But to answer your question, man, we sourced lists, we used bandit signs, created websites, and we drove traffic. Those bandit signs would have the website on them, so people would go directly to the website. And the letters that we would send out, we got all types of, inquiries, people reaching out, and then also had a list of contacts. I used to sell high-end luxury cars. And so when I walked away from that career, I had over 400 clients in my database from selling during that period of time. And so what I did was, statistically, I read an article that talked about people that were in distress, that were facing foreclosure. And it was basically 1 out of 4 people knew someone that was facing foreclosure. And so I was like, what do I have to lose to write this letter and let people know that I specialize in this specific field, and that if they have someone, or they themselves, or if they know someone, or they themselves are facing foreclosure, basically I'd love to be a resource. And so sending those letters out, we actually got like 20 responses, and out of those 20 responses led to 10 listings. So, man, it was really just doing it the old grassroots way, hitting the pavement, letters, prospecting, door knocking. I did it all, my wife and I. So that's how we sourced our deals.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember bandit signs. I used to get up at 4
Yeah.
a.m. I started a little bit later than you in 2013, but we didn't know what we didn't know at that time. For
Yeah.
me and my buddy, it was just before we grew our team. And we would put bandit signs up on telephone poles, but we would have some, like, we bought this crazy, like, 15-foot pipe that you could, like, nail it up really high. So it was
Yeah.
hard for the people to take it
Take them
down.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that just, like, sent me back to that moment where we would put them in our trunk, hop out, slam it into the thing, and then drive off before, hopefully not getting arrested or fined or whatever. But that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of doing it that way to start before you kind of get your feet wet and get momentum there. Mailing lists is a great opportunity to not have to pay a whole lot of money, especially if you, like, print it at home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But let's
Absolutely.
flash forward. So it's really cool that that's how you kind of built your real estate empire. That was the start of it. But let's talk about your team. Can you walk us through, just at a high level, why you decided to start a team, and then the organization around it, and then we can really dive in?
Yeah, from the team structure really is, it's not so much as just every agent's working underneath us. We have a company, we have a brokerage where we have like-minded individuals. I talked about representation matters. Me being an African American male living here in America, I've had unfortunate experiences due to racism. I've had it, and actually being at brokerages. I won't name the names, but because that's really not important. I think answering the question is why and how my team was structured. I'm kind of giving a little bit of background and coming from those companies and seeing what those experiences were. Not all of it was bad, but at the end of the day, I believed that I could build something where I could create an environment where people that look like me, think like me, share similar interests. We can create an environment for collaboration. So for us, we had relationships in the space. I had some agents that were with me when I was at KW, and I informed them that I was going to be stepping away in my leadership role as a sports and entertainment director and actually formulating my own brokerage. And they were free to stay if they wanted. I was not interested in disrupting their experience at that time if that's where they wanted to remain. All of them said, no, we want to go with you. And so I was like, okay, great. So the way it was structured was that, look, you can stay and remain at KW, or you can come with me, and if you do, you can be on the team, or you can actually function as your own individual agent, but still have the benefits and the resources that we're going to provide as far as marketing materials, as far as some coaching, mentorship. You have access to me, but if I'm going to be involved directly on a regular basis with your deals, then we're going to have a structure where I'm going to take a little bit more of the share of the commission, as opposed to if you're actually functioning on your own. So that's how I just originally structured it with those individuals. So a couple of them, they do work directly, underneath us, underneath me and my wife. And, if there's things that they're like deals that, like, for instance, a listing, we're going to collaborate and co-list. If we're representing the buyer, we're going to represent that buyer because they don't have the experience like myself with over 20 years in the business. So they do need a little bit more hand holding. And so I make myself available, when needed with those types of transactions. But overall, for us, it's really about helping the agents perform and understand how to build brands in this space, understand how to grow their business through relationships as opposed to being transactional. We don't do Zillow Flex. We don't buy leads. And I don't knock anyone that does that. I mean, I've tried that model years ago, and I felt that it's not really sustainable, to be honest, because you're going to have a lot of turnover. The cost to maintain and keep up the lead flow is, to me, is just not something I see as being an efficient way to grow the business for us and our brand and what we're focused on. And so we decided to really lock in and focus on private events, focus on strategic networking, strategic partnerships, and showing our agents how to actually build their business that way, where you're driving in referrals. And yes, you do have to do prospecting. And so we've taught our agents various forms of prospecting, whether that's passively or aggressively based upon their personalities. Aggressively could be you're hitting the phones and you're circle dial prospecting, or you're calling off of just listed, just sold, or you're using some form of a consistent method of market updates where you're forming a specific community or area, or you're part of a private club. Like we do have some agents that are like a part of Soho House, so they network that way, right?
Okay.
My wife and I, we actually form specific neighborhoods. We've shown our agents how to digitally form by actually leveraging your database and actually targeting those individuals with, digital ads. So they're seeing a combination of market information. They're seeing original organic content. It's not all sales, sales, sales. We basically try to be more than just your traditional quote unquote brokerage. It's just like, hey, we got this large team. We're churning and burning leads, and we're just trying to get leads in the pipeline. And just, and I understand that is a business model that works. But when you're looking at higher side or higher end clients, that doesn't work. You have to
Right.
actually build relationships. So we have agents that are focused more on the higher end side that are working to build their names in this space and acquire clients. So it does take more time. But on the back end of that, you see the results where you're closing higher price points in sales and you're doing fewer deals, but the money's bigger and you're spending, I would say, probably the same amount of time, if not less, when you're looking at a more affluent seller or buyer than you would, let's just say you're trying to get that first time home buyer. You're spending a little bit of time of hand holding, answering a lot of questions, getting them through that process, potentially even dealing with, roadblocks or setbacks, because that's just kind of what comes with that territory. Whereas when you're working with the more affluent buyer or seller, they oftentimes know what they want. They just need the proper advice and guidance, and then the protection where it comes with the contracts, understanding how to represent them, negotiate favorable terms on the front end, and then when you get into escrow, you're negotiating repair requests. All of those things are where the real
Right.
work lies in this business. And what we do is really try to coach and teach our agents how to be efficient, productive professionals, advisors, not just transactional agents in this space. So the way the team is structured, I'm the leader when it comes to the things I just shared as far as mentoring. We do bi-weekly calls where we talk about the market, what's happening in the market, how to actually effectively communicate what's happening in the market to your clients, to your sphere. And then, we talk about collaboration, what deals that we can collaborate on. We have, deals in our pipeline, like myself and my wife, we got 6 deals in our pipeline, 3 in escrow. So we're always looking at like where we are today and where we're trying to go tomorrow, right? And then we all have business plans. So it's like, where are you in your business plan? Where are you towards obtaining your goals? And it's just rinse and repeat, honestly, man. It's just staying connected. It's 10 of us and we all have really good relationships. And the 10 of us have been together now almost 4.5 years. So I think that's what makes us unique, because it's not just about, hey, sit in this seat and call all of these leads. And if you don't get anything in the escrow, you're out of here. And look, I understand that business model does work for a lot of people, but from a legacy standpoint, I want to see these agents be successful. And I understand it takes time to build your business. If you're doing it from a standpoint of referrals, building relationships, I tell all of the agents it's going to take you anywhere from 3 to 5 years to really get traction. So you have to make a big commitment and you have to have the finances to do that. And if you're committed to that, I'm sharing the blueprint with them, all of our marketing materials, how we communicate. We host events so they get to see me in real time, how we engage with my wife and I, how we engage with guests at our event. So it's an ecosystem of like constant evolution, support, collaboration, and you also have to have a lot of patience too. And that's just what comes with the territory when you're working from this position where you're trying to help people get to a certain level in the business.
Right. 100%. I'm curious. You talked about you have kind of like different model of like they're either independent or they're directly under you. For the people that are the latter and you're helping them along, what are some of the ways that you can help, by holding them accountable and help in that regard?
Yeah, yeah,
Drop the ball on anything
yeah.
together.
So we the first of the year we go through what's called a business plan. Lay out, kind of laying the foundation and setting the goals, and then within the first 90 days, there's specific things that we want them to focus on in regards to actually building and growing their sphere, and then from there, once you kind of have that foundation laid, then you're focusing on now what business are you driving from those contacts, those touches that you're making over that first 90 days, right? So example, like if I've got an agent and they're kind of working more on the independent side, they've got the first 90 days to follow our model, right? So what's going to be your first event, right? Or, your first event or first community event, and who's going to be on that list that you're going to be inviting, right? And then Monday through Friday, what form of prospecting are you doing on a daily basis? Is it passive? Is it aggressive? And how consistent are you remaining at it? So bi-weekly, we're checking in and saying, okay, where are you from a percentage standpoint on, accomplishing these tasks? And then these tasks are leading you towards accomplishing your goals, right? And from there, we look at basically every time we meet bi-weekly, how many leads have you driven in for the month and where did they come from? So that's example. I play golf regularly. I attend other events. I also have a more robust database. And so we have automation going on the back end where we have a series of emails that are going out to tag contacts. And so we show those agents basically, hey, here's the blueprint. So you get your database set up, and these are the emails that you want to have going out to these specific tagged individuals, and just let the system run and let people respond to those emails. And then you can also go in and look and see who's opening those emails. And then we have basically a follow-up process with that to engage those individuals. So there's, which I would call that passive. There's that process going on in the background, but the more aggressive is how are you getting in front of people? So that's coffee meetings. So who are your top 50 prospects, right? If you don't have 50, who are your top 10 or 20? We get them to identify that. And then how are you going to stay engaged with these individuals? You need to touch them at least 8 times out of the year. You don't want to harass them, but you want to touch them in a way 8 times out of the year. So one is a birthday email. If you sold them home, it's an anniversary email on the sale of their property, right? And then third is, hey, there's a coffee or lunch or dinner meeting twice out of the year. You're going to take them to dinner twice out of the year because, people are busy, and then it goes on and on
Yeah.
from the fourth. The next is you're going to invite them out to an event. We hold 4 events out of the year. You need to invite them to all 4. They may show up to 1. That's just how it is, right? And depending on your relationship, they might show up to all of them. And then, 5, all right, what aspect of value are you going to share with them? Hey, here's if you sold them a property, even if it was a listing or if it was, a property that they purchased. All right, here's a market update on the valuation of your property. That's value. This just wanted you to have this. You know that this is where the market is right now. Even if they're a year in, it helps them get an understanding of, hey, I've made a good investment. The market's going up, or hey, the market's stagnant right now. Here's the recent sales, but there's positivity, because we see these things coming and going forward. That's how you stay top of mind. They say statistically 70-80% of the agents that represent their clients don't reuse them when it comes time to buy or sell because they have no form of contact with those individuals from a follow-up standpoint. So we really emphasize that follow-up is really key, and that's what's going to lead you to those additional deals. And then what things can you provide educationally? So you need to have a newsletter going out every month, at a minimum bi-weekly or every week. And if you're a new beginning agent, it's going to be hard to have an email going out every week, but you can have a newsletter going out every month. And we share our blueprint email with them, so it's plug and play. They don't have to do anything but make specific adjustments if they want to add, but it's already ready to go out. So you got that newsletter. And then 6, typically what we try to do with number 6 is make it more personable about you. So maybe you formulate a community event, right? Or some form of philanthropy where you're giving back, but you're asking for support for a cause that is important to you, because that shows the human side of who you are as a person, but it allows you to connect. So example is that garage cleanouts, right? If you live in a particular neighborhood or community, you can create a garage clean out, or you can create, a coat drive at the end of for the winter, for particular kids at your school. And these are just different examples that we've thrown out. And then, from there, what we try to tell the agents that whatever you're doing with your 8 touches, just make sure it's actually something that displays who you are as a person, your character, and it allows you to stay consistent with maintaining that contact. You don't have to in your first year, don't overwhelm yourself that you got to be doing these big fancy things. Identify what your budget is and then work backwards from there to plan how you're going to stay in front of those people with these 8 touches for the, 12 months out of the year. And I tell our agents, we break everything down by 4 quarters, just like in sports. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. That's what we have for the year. We got 4 quarters. So don't get overwhelmed and think you got to get everything done overnight. If you break it down quarter by quarter, it's more digestible. You're able to stay more consistent. So our biweekly meetings, we just check in and say, okay, where are you in the process of once you get past those first 90 days? That's the key of building a foundation. But where are you with maintaining consistency with your business plan?
Right. That's awesome, man. So they come in to basically the blueprint that you perfected and optimized over the last 20 years of trial and error.
Yeah,
And they
pretty
have
much.
they have something tangible to do, which a lot of brokerages claim to have it, but you don't really have like on day one do this through
Yeah,
day 90 do that. That's
yeah.
amazing. I love
Well, I think the tough part is too is a lot of brokerages. The model changed. When we got into business, it was this independent agent. Oh, door closed. I don't have time to talk to you. I'm focused on my business. I'm not sharing any secrets on your competition, etc. There was no collaboration really, and people's viewpoint on collaboration can be different, right? But what I began to understand as I grew in this business is that a lot of the brokers today, they're just going to put you on someone's team. And your job is to basically help them grow their business. And I wanted to give our agents an option, right? We have a brokerage, right? So I'm not just some agent at KW or Compass or wherever. And Compass is the brokerage, and I need you on my team to help me grow my business. It's about what's important for you. Who are you and where are you in your business? And how can I support you? If you need a little bit more hand holding, you want to learn a little bit more of the secrets, the trades of the business, then yeah, you can be under me, but that's going to cost you, right? Because it's my time. But if you're someone that's a little bit more experienced and you already have some traction, example, you're a 5, 10, 15 plus $1 million producer, but you're like, hey, I'm trying to tap into this niche, or I'm trying to really expand my business on the listing side, or really I'm trying to just grow my sphere with basically some form of consistency, then that's where we say, okay, here are the systems and processes that we're using. We're happy to share these with you in a form. That's a form of collaboration because you're at our brokerage. When you make money, we make money. Now, I might not make as much than if you're underneath me on a team split, but my intention isn't just about, well, let me get the most money out of these individuals. It's about how can I help them be successful? And if they're successful, there's a higher retention rate versus if you're just crashing out on driving leads in, you eventually get burned out and you're looking for the easier route, right? You're looking for the next shiny thing that you're believing in. Well, if I go over to this person's team, I'm going to get more attention. I'm going to get more support, whatever that is, versus like, where are you in your business today? How can we help you grow? What's the best thing for you at this particular time? And you get to choose that. And once you choose that, then we can focus on the game plan. Now, today's model, they don't do that. It's like if you're at Compass, you're getting on Andrew's team, and this is what you're doing. And it's all
it.
about Andrew. And if you're not all about Andrew, you got to go. And we're starting to see that model not be as sustainable as it once was in the beginning.
Right, right, right.
Especially now that leads are harder to generate, and also quality leads is doing this versus doing this, and they're becoming more expensive. While the lead quality is doing this, the cost is going up, and that's not sustainable. And to me, whoever does that, I don't knock them, but I understood that very early on, over a decade ago, that you just aren't going to have sustainability building a business model that way. You're going to have a lot of turnover. That's a lot of time being spent bringing new agents in and training them. Find the agents that want to actually build businesses and not just want to be transactional. Because if they're going to be just transactional, they're going to find a way to go to the next team or the next company because they're offering better splits or they're offering revenue share, whatever it is, right? It's that, what is that next shiny thing that's going to, lead me to believe I'm
Yeah.
not going to have to do as much work. This is business. There's always going to be work in business, regardless of what it is. Yes, you can put in, systems and processes and infrastructure that minimize how you're spending your time, but I'm about people. I'm investing in people. So for me, when I'm investing in these other agents, I get excited about seeing the results. And I tell them, like, look, be patient. It's going to take time to actually build a business. But if you're serious about being in this business for the long term, you're going to thank your younger self or yourself that made the decision to focus on building a business 5, 6, 7 years down the road when you start to see the results of that work paying off.
Yeah, it's going to compound over time, and it does take a long
Absolutely.
time to kind of get there. But really cool. You're obviously doing something the right way, Rod. 4.5 years with your entire team basically, or everyone in your brokerage?
Yeah.
I mean, there's brokerage hoppers. People leave all day. Every single day, people are skipping to the next big thing. So the fact that you've had your amazing team together for that long, that really says something about you
Yeah.
as a leader and your philosophy there. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious though. So it took you, just like anyone joining your team, it takes them a long time to kind of build up to where they want to be, kind of like what you went through. I'm curious, like, I'm assuming this is an assumption, but please, one of the things I really like to do on the show is to hear not only the successes, but like when things went wrong or lessons learned, because that's where the real learning happens. Can you share anything like mistake, lesson learned, something you're like, oh my God, why did I do that in your 20-year career? And like how you identified it, what you did to kind of make sure you didn't do it again. Do you have anything that you could share with us?
Man, I mean, I haven't done anything that's like catastrophic that's led to like a client being affected in a negative way. I think for me, I look back on my career and there's certain things if I'd have just stayed more consistent early on versus deviating away from them because when you first get into business, you're trying to close deals and get business, right? And farming is one thing I think I would have stuck with longer in specific neighborhoods when I first started out. I spent like 2 years. I'm like, damn, I've been farming this for 2 years and understanding that it might take 3 to 5 to really see a true breakthrough. Doesn't mean you won't get deals in that neighborhood, but to actually see the consistency of each year that compounds that you're being consistent with your letters, your market updates, right, or your door knocks, whatever it is, or your phone calls, right, or your community events in that neighborhood. You have to be prepared to continually put that sweat equity in for 3 to 5 years before you really see results. Because if you study the statistics of your bigger agents, like in your market where you are, those agents that are doing majority of the business have farms, physical farms, neighborhoods where they consistently get listings. And if you talk to 20 of them, I guarantee you 99% of them will tell you it took me 3 to 5 years to start seeing consistency from my farm. So that means I had to invest X amount of dollars knowing that I may not see a return for 3 to 5 years. Doesn't mean they didn't do a deal. It's a difference from doing a deal, maybe one or two here and there, but consistently knowing that this farm is going to bring me 10 million in sales annually. Translate that into
Yeah.
dollars, $500,000 in commissions annually. And that has nothing to do with me closing a lead or someone from my sphere. This is my farm. And so I would say early on, I deviated away from that because I got impatient. And looking back, had I stayed consistent with that, I know that those farms would have been performing a lot more consistently and I would be seeing more deals had I remained consistent. So I would say that's one thing looking back that I made a mistake on. And
No, that's
that's
awesome.
a tough lesson to
It's
learn.
hard. Yeah, it's hard to do that without seeing a return, but it's like you have to stick it out, kind of like payroll, right? You have to get it
Absolutely.
out as hard as it can be sometime. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really great lesson.
Yeah.
I'm really curious too. You seem like a systems guy, and you mentioned like your database. How are you keeping track of all this? Like, what kind of tools does your brokerage and do you guys use over there?
Follow Up Boss and Active Pipe. I tell people keep it simple. Find you a good CRM that you like and that basically that can help you maintain consistency with staying in front of your contacts in your database because whether you know it or not, people still check their emails regardless of what people are saying, right? And so if you're putting out value consistently every month, where there's a newsletter updating people on the market, on your sales, things they need to be aware of, they may not respond to you, but when they're ready, you want to be the person that they think of, and that consistency enhances the odds that they may very well reach out to you because they're like, you know what, I get Rod's email every week, or I get his email twice a week. I mean, twice a month, right? And that helps position you to stay top of mind. So we use ActivePipe, which merges and connects with Follow Up Boss to push all of our email newsletters or emails out, whether it's our featured listing email, whether it's our biweekly email that shows top listed properties that just came on the market, whether it's our actual email that highlights our sales, active, pending, sold listings. We also highlight notable sales in the area, meaning high price point sales of a public figure or an athlete. So those are things we
Hmm.
know that people are interested in. That gets a lot of clicks. So using those emails, that's a big part of our system that helps us drive in more business because that consistency eventually wins. Again, people pay attention to who's actually doing business, especially during a time like right now where there's fewer transactions happening. And
Right.
that goes a long ways, even more so than just social media, because everyone doesn't often see what you post, especially now with the algorithm limiting, how many people that are actually your followers are seeing your content. You can use email to basically make sure those individuals see it, right? And that consistency over time compounds, as you just shared. So ActivePipe and Follow Up Boss are our two CRMs that we really lean heavily into, and I've been using it now for 6 years. Well, I've been using
Cool.
Follow Up Boss. Let me take that back. I've been using Follow Up Boss and ActivePipe for 4 years, but before that, I used Mailchimp.
MailChimp. Okay. Nice.
And
Okay, cool.
ActivePipe is just like Mailchimp.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Out of curiosity, since you mentioned it, what's the highest? You're in Beverly Hills, right? So you guys have some pretty high price points out there. What's the highest price point you or anyone on your team has ever sold?
The highest price point for me is 12 million.
Wow, that's awesome. What neighborhood was that one in?
Malibu.
Okay, very cool. So we talked about a lot of stuff today. You have a very unique approach to your brokerage. I really love it. If anyone is in need of your services or your team services as they, look for properties to buy and sell out in California, how would one get in touch with you, Rob?
Yeah, so I mean, they can go on Instagram and they can, connect with me there with a follow or a direct message. It's at Rod Watson 23. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there on LinkedIn, or you can actually in my profile on Instagram. I have my phone number and my email, and you can just email me or text me.
Excellent. And we'll also include all of your Rod's contact information in the description. One final question. What I normally like to do is kind of throw out like AI is all the rage now, right? I'm curious to hear you have a very kind of like old school type of approach, right? Like networking and parties and events and things like that. Have you, chased this shiny AI object yet, or do you plan to, or what are your
Yeah,
thoughts
that's
on
that's a
AI
good
in the real
question.
estate world?
Yeah, man, that's a good question, Andrew. We're actually right now in the thick of actually using AI in our business. So we have a mobile app that's actually on iTunes and Android. It's a Distinct Concierge Properties. You can go to iTunes or on Android. I don't have Android, but I have an iPhone. So for those iPhone users on Apple, on your iTunes store or Apple App Store, you can go and download the app. And right now, we're utilizing AI within that app. We have an assistant called Mel, and basically, what Mel does is communicate and actually track the searches of the actual buyers or individuals that download the app and start to search for homes. So you have unique search property features where what Mel does is actually studies, like for you, Andrew, if you downloaded the app and you started looking at specific types of homes, Mel's going to basically inform me that Andrew's looking at these types of homes. Here's what he's opened up consistently. Here's his favorites. Here's the homes when you swipe left that he didn't like, and here's the reasons why. So then that data is taken by our AI assistant, and what the AI does is go and it scours the MLS, right, and looks for properties that actually matches without you having to spend the time. And then it says, Andrew, here are some properties that actually fall into the scope based upon your interest and your feedback. So that's doing a lot of
Oh
the
man,
heavy
that's awesome.
lifting. Yeah, and then the other part of it is that we have a chat feature where you can actually communicate with Mel. So, example, you can ask Mel, "Hey, what is the average price per square foot here in Encino? I'm interested in buying a 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom property," and then it will give you that information. Now, if that information is 100% accurate, I can see it and I can make any type of adjustments or say, "Hey, Mel is still working to gather data and information, and sometimes the information isn't always 100% accurate. However, this is what is accurate, this is what isn't. But at least as of right now, it's pretty close. I mean, I've done my own personal, prompts for mail when it comes to actually properties or when it comes to CMAs or just giving me overall market data about a specific area or tell me about the schools in the area, what are the top schools and why. And so we're working to enhance this form of AI to basically enhance the overall experience of the consumer, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's really about. So yeah, we are heavily involved in AI right now. We have a team over in India that's really helping us, more or less improve the product. So the experience
Mhm.
is no different than, what you experience on with OpenAI on ChatGPT, right? And so,
Right.
but think of it more in line for real estate, right?
Okay.
Specifically, you know, with searches for properties, and then we're actually adding a feature which is going to be for sellers as well when it comes to getting a market analysis CMA for your property. You don't have to just wait for the agent. If you have the app, right? We're going to use push alert features because what we do is we upload our contacts into the app, and then the AI is now able to go through those contacts and also focus on driving in business for us by sending out prompt messages to tagged individuals in those contacts that own properties. We believe we're really doing some next level stuff at this particular point. And we are
Yeah.
really leaning heavily into AI to help us grow our business and the company's brand. And the other things, we use ChatGPT a lot. So yeah, we
Mhm.
definitely are, leaning into the AI movement, if you will. And we're looking at it as, man, it's just a tool, right? It's just a tool to work more efficiently, to help you formulate your ideas, help you execute on your ideas, help you improve in those areas in your business where now instead of having to rely upon a actual physical human assistant, the AI can do a lot of that work and help us from, cut down cost, if you will. Yeah, that may eliminate a specific position for the need for an assistant, but at the same time, it's still a great tool to help us be more efficient and also cut costs.
That's awesome. And is your app like just for your part of the country, or can anyone download it? Like I'm in Virginia. Would it
Yeah,
work
you can
out
you
here
can
yet?
download it in Virginia, and I want to say, let me think about that. You may have some limited features based upon what MLS you're working off there as far as how many properties you'll be able to see. I would say try it and see and let me know. But yes, to answer that question, you should be able to see featured properties because it's connected to the overall, how do you put it, MLS like Zillow is, right? On the back end. So it's not just connected to like I'm with Claw, the MLS. It's connected to the what do you call those? I mean, what are those portals that you have that everyone has access to through their websites? I'm trying to remember the name of them.
IDX.
IDX. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nationwide IDX.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm curious, since you sounds like you have an amazing AI app. What are your thoughts on AI having conversations, most notably like on the phone? Have you seen these like AI appointment setters? Have you dabbled in that or not? Like, what are your
No,
thoughts on that?
I haven't. I have a friend. He actually has a company and he's done really well with that where, the AI assistant can take phone calls. We are actually prompting our AI assistant to be able to record phone calls and basically give us notes on those phone calls and the key points from those conversations. But
Right.
I personally, the way I run and operate my business, I don't want an AI actually reaching out and talking to people in my contacts. I want to
Yeah.
actually have those conversations. So I think based upon who you are and how you're running and operate your business, if you want AI to call a lot of leads, you can use it for that. My buddy's company does that. He actually was talking to me and trying to get me to use it, but I'm like, I don't want to have a artificial intelligence, because I'm not there to hear those phone calls. And those phone calls can be recorded, but then you got to go through all of those calls.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not something that for me personally that I'm interested in. But what we are using AI to do is to send out text messages and emails.
Yeah. That's a good use of it.
Yeah.
I haven't used the AI to have conversations either. I'm of the fact like I think that's a personal touch, especially for your model where it's like very, very
Yeah.
relationship referral. So yeah, it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense you
Yeah.
wouldn't.
It's not on brand for us. For our contacts, it'd be like, that's odd that he's using this. It's not on brand.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't knock people that are trying it, but also you have to be really careful with the whole do not calls and having spam calls going out. And so that's becoming a big issue, specifically out here in California, because there's so many agents. It's so competitive and there's fewer deals. So, for us, we haven't entered into that world. We're more like passively, even somewhat passive. I would just say we're passively being aggressive about staying in front of the contacts and sending out data and information that's going to engage them with
Hmm.
where they are in the process, or if it's just a sphere contact, like if you're somebody I know, I'm not going to be hitting you up about selling your home. I'm going to say, hey, here's a market update, and if you're interested and curious about what your home might be worth now, you can go here, and if you don't, that's fine. But if you do, I'm going to know that you clicked on that link, and then I have a follow-up process from there. It's like, hey, Andrew, I saw you clicked on and you inquired about evaluation of the property. Is that just because you're curious, or hey, are you thinking about maybe possibly making a move or a refinance? Let me know how I can help. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no pressure there about, hey, when can I get the appointment to list your property?
Yeah. Super simple, no pressure kind of approach
Yeah,
there. I love it.
yeah,
Well, Rod, this has been awesome. Our goal at the Team Lead Talk team lead talks, I can't talk myself. Podcast is if like one person listening can take away one or more different things from this to further their personal life, their business, then we've won. Really great to have met you, man. Thank you so much for being on. Again, I'll drop all of your contact information in the description. So anyone listening that wants to get in touch with you, just real quick, what markets do you work out in California? Just so people have an idea.
Yeah, so we're in LA, West Side LA. We work in the Valley, the West Side. So we've sold in Brentwood, we've sold in Venice, Santa Monica, West Hollywood, Hollywood, downtown Los Angeles, out in the Valley, Encino, Tarzana, Woodland Hills, Porter Ranch, Thousand Oaks, and then we also cover San Diego. So San Diego, pretty much bi-coastal.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, you built something really great. It's really awesome to hear about this kind of stuff. This is why I love meeting new people from all over the country here, learning about their journey and where they started. And you have all good things to be proud of, man. It was so nice having you on the show, and hopefully our paths will cross again one day, man. You as well, man. Thank you.